hast mir gerade noch gefehlt, Angela. Mit dir, da ist mein Glück komplett, Angela.
Chased by the deep state, fighting for independence, thinking about revolution, looking for alternative solutions. The enemies of the deep state will tell you what others even don't dare to think. Manuel Ochsenreiter and Mateusz Piskorski.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the next edition of the #1 geopolitical beauty blogcast, DieGutenMenschen, Public Enemies of the Deep State. Here is again Manuel Ochsenreiter talking, Editor-in-Chief of the German news magazine Zuerst, and still in the Corona bunker. And on the other side is my friend Mateusz Piskorski. Hello, Mateusz.
Hello from Poland, from the Polish forests and bunkers.
By the way, I wanted to ask you, I read that 2 years ago the Bhutanese Air Force announced to choose Poland as a test territory for nuclear bombs. Is that true?
Yes, exactly. I have heard a lot about it, and I guess that it was a main topic of discussion among Polish politicians who were trying to find a way to negotiate with Bhutan.
What is happening at the Polish-Bhutanese border? I don't know.
Well, the situation is still quite tense, so we don't know what to expect in the coming months. Anyway, I really hope that we can find a solution of this important international conflict.
Peace should always have a chance. That is what I always say.
Yes, and that's also our appeal to the Bhutanese government, Bhutanese people who listen to us and really give us a chance, give us here in Europe a chance and give peace a chance.
I just hope, if the hot war will break out, that the situation for the Polish prisoners of war in the Bhutanese prisoner camps will be somehow fit to human rights standards. I have doubts.
Well, actually, I hope that they won't take Germany after taking Poland.
Oh yes, but we have the Oder and Neisse River, and will then put there the old flak guns, well, we don't know when Germany all of a sudden has a border with the Bhutanese occupation zone of Poland. I don't know what we will do then.
Yes, then you would have to negotiate. You wouldn't have any alternative for that.
So don't upset also Bangladesh, because then you are in real trouble if they go into an alliance.
Yes, and several other countries. But concerning the great talents of Polish political class, we can say that theoretically for Poland nothing is impossible, and we can come into conflict with anyone from all over the world.
That sounds really calming.
Yes.
That sounds really calming.
There was a joke actually that Poland is good at several things, but the best thing the Polish governments can do is to organize a war on their territory. Concerning our history, it's quite true. Yes.
What should I say?
Yes. Well, you know it perfectly as a German.
Yes,
that we are really good at providing our territory for all possible wars.
But let's speak about something else. Let's speak about peace. Let's speak about someone who is totally popular in the world and who I can proudly call my German Chancellor. Let's talk about Angela Merkel, who was called, and I am really not joking, who was called in German mainstream media that she is not just federal chancellor, because of course Germany is the Federal Republic of Germany and we call our chancellor Bundeskanzler, what means federal chancellor. No, she should be the world chancellor. Other chancellors would have dreamed about such a title. What do you think?
Well, concerning the almost 20 years, yes, she's in her position. I think that even some monarchs, some kings and queens could only dream of being in power for so many years. But she's probably the most having politically active women, and not only women, by the way, in contemporary Europe. That's true. The question is rather what makes her able to survive all possible political crises and so on. This is a question for you as a German.
This is, by the way, a question many Germans, and not just journalists or analysts or intellectuals, are asking themselves. I think what makes the person of Angela Merkel unique, and this is, by the way, even a parallel to Helmut Kohl, and we remember Helmut Kohl was also a very long-term Chancellor of Germany, of the CDU party. He was a kind of political father of Angela Merkel. He groomed her, he raised her, and he put her in leading positions. So what unites these two characters is that they provoke underestimation. Angela Merkel was always underestimated. And I think that was a surprising moment. So she had always the moment of surprise on her side in the past. When she was acting in her party, when she was getting rid, by the way, in a very brutal way, in a very manly, brutal way, she was kicking away the competition within the party. For international audience, some of the names might sound familiar, like Friedrich Merz, for example, one of her main competitor, who is now again trying to get some position back. But even today, I mean, due to the corona crisis, we speak today about the next term of Angela Merkel. She announced that she would retreat or go into pension after this term, and now we talk again that she will be candidate next year, and it's very likely that she would be re-elected. So one important element is the underestimation. One other element is pure technocratic management approach towards politics. This woman is not a liberal, she is not left, she's not right, she's a technocrat in what she's doing. The CDU party, when she became the leader, was a liberal conservative political formation. It is quite interesting to see how this party changed, that in the moment there was a majority concerned about nuclear power, for example, and nuclear power was always one of the main fields of energy policy of the conservative and also liberal parties in Germany. Angela Merkel was the one who did what we call the Energiewende, abolishing nuclear power. Under Angela Merkel as Chancellor, we abolished more or less military service. Under Angela Merkel, we introduced gay marriage. So these are all not, you might agree, but these are all not conservative points of policy. So she has a very, very fine sense for sentiments, for developing sentiments in the population, and she has a very, very fine sense how to orchestrate majorities for herself.
That's why she is called Mutti, I guess, by several Germans, yes?
What is interesting, since she doesn't have children of her own.
Well, all the Germans have children, as it appears.
82 million children, this woman
has. Yes. That's why she has time for all of her children and for Germany. Yes.
And 7 billion children more, as we see now.
Yes.
But that is...
well, I don't know about the 7 million, but you know her father's roots, so Polish people might also feel proud.
Yes, he's Polish.
Yes, his name was Kazimierczak, which he has changed to Kazne later. But anyway, I'm talking about her grandfather. Yes, not about her father, but from the father's side, as far as I remember. Anyway, that's not so important. The important thing is that. It's really hard to understand this phenomenon, yes, for the moment being, because in all political scientists' term, She doesn't have any kind of charisma, any kind of features of a leader, of a political leader, and so on. Yes, so really for the outside world, from the people from outside Germany, it's so hard to understand that I have even read some explanations that some of the followers of different conspiracy theories claim that, for instance, she is somehow installed by external powers. Yes, of course. I mean Washington D.C. here. Yes.
Yeah.
Some others have claimed that, and it's more reasonable, I think, that this is the matter of some part of German mentality which is always in favor of stabilization and lack of unnecessary changes and so on and so on. Yes, I myself cannot explain that, although I live quite close to Germany and speak with a lot of Germans, especially with you.
Thank you.
No one has explained me the phenomena of Angela Merkel. So maybe you try again.
Yes, but it is. I mean, I think you got the point. Not necessarily with the conspiracy theory. I know them all, and of course, and that is not just a thing of Angela Merkel. I think it's the thing of any German chancellor. But it is more like preemptive obedience, I would call it. I wouldn't call it that Washington is giving an order and then the German chancellor is doing. It is even worse. It is that it comes in the meantime from the German side. It is a type of, well, in war times one would call it type of collaboration. If you collaborate with your occupation power, and that is exactly what is happening within the whole political class, we have to say that in Germany, not just with the government. That happens in the whole political class, and this obedience goes deep, even inside the political fringes of the left and the right. We have as well in Die Linke guys who are very much pro-NATO, pro-American, pro-transatlanticism, and we have these people also in the Alternative für Deutschland also. So it's like an octopus which has its arms in all the political formations. But what you said about Merkel, and what is right, she is not charismatic, and she gives the impression of, let me say, a more or less cold-blooded manager, not someone who is following an idea and is promoting an idea. No, she is managing the state, and that is, by the way, I think that hits indeed a little bit the German mentality. That's a little bit what we want, someone who is calmly conducting or directing the big German tanker ship through the storms of the sea, and everything is calm, and this is how we like it. But, and that is now interesting with Merkel, it's just the style, because if we see especially what happened in the, let us say in the last 10-15 years, there were tremendous changes, starting from her moves in the European Union to make the European Union more, to give more and more sovereignty rights to Brussels in Germany without any request to the population. There is no referendum and nothing for all this. But that started already with Helmut Kohl, with the introduction of the euro, where the Germans were not asked. So she is conducting this course more and very intense. The opening of the borders, of the German borders in 2015, a change which is so fundamental and will go so deep that we cannot see the effects even right now. The whole debates about migration, not just to Germany but to whole Europe, we should never forget that Germany, as one of the main countries of the European Union, or others would even say, when it comes to economy and industry, the main country of the European Union, is of course dominating the other countries. And not even asking countries such as Greece or Croatia or Poland also, of course, if they agree to a policy of open borders to the European continent. So she is in a very, very calm way doing really revolutionary changes or organizing revolutionary changes in Europe, which might change the face of Europe forever, and which you cannot simply take back later on, since we speak about demography. It is not like a law. It is not like permitting marijuana today and tomorrow you ban it again or so. So this is fundamental, and that is what she is doing. But in the population, and I think that was what also what made you a little bit puzzled or thinking. Angela Merkel is seen as like a factor of stability, what she isn't actually. But she behaves like a factor of stability, she's seen as a factor of stability, and if we Germans love something, it is stability.
Well, I agree that, of course, the technocratic element in politics in attracting the electorate is now prevailing everywhere. Mm-hmm. By the way, I don't know. I know that the process of German parties, not only German, but let's take the example of Germany, that the process of, let's say, de-ideologization of German parties started just after the World War II. Yes? So, I mean, for instance, the SPD and their Congress in Bad Godesberg, where they're completely rejected and forgot about their, let's say, class identity as a party, and so on and so on. Yes, so of course she's a technocrat, but anyway, I think that this has also something to do with what you have told about, that she managed to get rid of all the competition, of the inter-party competition from other parties, I mean also, and from her own party, in the ranks of her own party. Yes, am I right?
Yes, and I think it is in any country the same thing. Much worse than your opponents of the other parties are the competitors in your own party. So we have even the saying in Germany, Freund, Feind, Parteifreund. Friend,
yes,
enemy.
We have the same. Yes.
So that's exactly the same in Germany. So first of all, of course, what is playing in her hands is that the political class in Germany since decades is losing more and more quality. That is not necessarily orchestrated by her. Yeah, that is, I think, zeitgeist. That is what is right now happening. But inside the party, and again, the element which helped her most was the permanent underestimation. People didn't take her serious. Kohl was calling her das Mädchen, or mein Mädchen. That means my little girl. And at the end, we shouldn't forget that she pressed the button when everything around Helmut Kohl exploded in the end of the 90s. He had a very, very horrible affair about illegal donations to the CDU party, and I mean, she executed him later on. No one would have expected that. And this unexpected hardcore acting out of the nothing, that is making her a strong leader in the party. By the way, and we were speaking about the migration politics, a lot of functionaries, medium functionaries and also higher functionaries of the CDU party were complaining about these moves. Of course they were, because they said, how should I explain this on a Saturday afternoon when we do an information thing in front of the supermarket, and people come to me, the citizens come to me and asking me, why are you doing that? Why are you opening the borders? What is the sense of all that? So there was a very, very strong aversion against this within the party. But in the moment when she was re-elected as head of the party, she had I think every Eastern Bloc state party leader would be envious about such results. She had always very, very high and stable results from her own party. So these people were silent when it came to the important point to express these doubts, because no one wants to get on her list in the party to be ousted or to be kicked, and so she is within the party seen as a very, very strong person, and at the same time underestimated very often, what is also a very weird mix.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting case from the point of view of different party systems. Anyway, there are some interesting things happening in Germany now, and I'm also curious what about the German political scene when it comes to all those ideas voiced by some German politicians who want to, let's say, somehow weaken the so-called transatlantic orientation of the German policy, of the German foreign policy, of the German defense policy, security policy. I'm now speaking in the context of, let's say, the latest series of tweets of some U.S. ambassadors in different countries. First, we had, but to tell the whole context, first we had some announcements by Social Democratic SPD politicians from Germany, including the chairman of the parliamentary group of SPD, Rolf Mützenich, who claimed that, that SPD is not in favor of prolonging the nuclear agreements with the US, and actually that SPD is not so in favor of US nuclear warfare stationing in the bases on the territory of the country. Yes. Then we had some articles, but of course it started from a tweet of Richard Grenell. Yes, your favorite ambassador in Berlin.
I just came back from a cute party with him. Yes.
So I didn't doubt about that. Yes. But he's not only an ambassador, he's also now a guy who is in charge of national intelligence of United States. Yes. So that's quite interesting as well. Anyway, there was his tweet where he, let's say, suggested that there are some countries in Eastern and Central Europe which seem to be more friendly to the American partners than the Germans. I mean, he, of course, pointed out at Poland and at the Baltic countries, the Baltic states, yes? And then we had a tweet of Georgette Mosbacher, an ambassador, although she doesn't look as an ambassador, of United States in Warsaw, where she confirmed that, she was talking in the name of Poles, of course, that we, the Poles, are really willing to take all the nuclear weapons, U.S. nuclear weapons from Germany, if the Germans don't want them on their own territory. Yes, so this was the case, and I'm wondering now, is it just talking for talking by some social democrats, or are there any, let's say, internal serious debates about the idea of loosening the grip of the Atlantist camp on over Germany? Yes, this is what was quite interesting, I think. What do you think about it?
These debates are, I mean, they are indeed interesting, and it is also interesting. We shouldn't forget that the Social Democrats are in the government in Germany. This is not coming from an opposition party. This is coming from the parliamentarian group leader of the coalition partner in the government.
Exactly. But if I may interrupt you, I think that Heiko Maas has another opinion than Rolf Mützenich.
Absolutely. That tells us also a lot, that there seem to be very deep disagreements in this. And these debates are coming they are coming frequently, by the way. I mean, we are discussing this now, and for many people it often seems like, the Germans, are there some guys waking up and all of the sudden asking some questions about American nuclear warheads on German soil. But these debates are very old, and I can tell you when all that started already back in the Cold War times in the 50s, when the Americans did a lot of propaganda in West Germany that they are from now on not anymore occupation power, but now they are our protective power against evil communism and Soviet Union and Eastern Bloc. And German generals, actually, who were in the NATO center, found out about NATO's defense strategy. NATO's defense strategy was to let the Soviets come to West Germany and to make West Germany a battleground. To say in other words, the Western or the Washington strategy, in case the Cold War becomes a hot war, was a German genocide. To say there are no other words. So also the tactical use, for example, of nuclear warheads. So from this time, there was a mistrust, even in, let me say it, in generally pro-transatlanticist circles in West Germany, was a mistrust against the American strategies, because everyone somehow knew they are, despite the air bridge or the airlift to West Berlin in the beginning, or in the beginning of the Cold War, when West Berlin was cut off West Germany, and all these so-called humanitarian actions didn't help them so much in that context. When you know that when it comes to the to reality, that they are willing to sacrifice their ally partners. So it started from there, and always in waves. Surprisingly, also transatlanticist West German politicians were raising questions about the presence of nuclear warheads. And before the big debate now, it was, by the way, the liberal foreign minister of Germany, Guido Westerwelle. I think the name rings, of course, a bell, but even Guido Westerwelle, one moment out of the nothing, raised the question if it is still necessary to have US-American nuclear warheads on German soil. So
yes,
this debate
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
This debate is coming and going. It is now. It has an intensity which is new. I think it is more debated now, and I think it is a little sign of also awareness, not just about the danger. There are many reasons to be against the presence of nuclear weapons. In my opinion, if we are ready to do a debate about the presence of nuclear weapons from the Americans in Germany, then we should also do a debate, of course, about the presence of American soldiers in Germany. But maybe that is too early now to ask these things. But maybe this is a sign that it will lead also to such questions. For now, it has maybe also to do a little bit to do with political party tactics, since for the Social Democrats it is very, very, very hard to develop some political profile in the government with Angela Merkel. You cannot even conduct a real campaign against Merkel, since you govern with her and since you support all the important projects, political projects with her. Raising the debate about the presence of American nuclear weapons on German soil is, on the one side, that you gain sympathies within the German population with it, but at the same time that it's not such a dangerous debate for now, since the leader of the Social Democratic group in the Bundestag is not in the position to decide over this, and since the foreign minister Heiko Maas, who is also Social Democrat, said already, no, don't worry, there will nothing change. It is somehow, it's not a fake debate. That would be, would be too extreme, but it's not a very dangerous debate. So the Social Democrats can say something what the Christian Democrats don't say and say, look, there is indeed a difference. We have also their different opinions, but at the same time, they are not violating the coalition and the peace in the coalition by doing this. I think that is a reason also for that.
Yes, and going back to Angela Merkel and her party, as well as the sister party in Bavaria, CSU, my question to you is if it's possible to find the supporters of, let's say, denuclearization of Germany, I mean the US denuclearization, among the members in the ranks of Christian Democrats, or they're all definitely 100% pro-Atlantist?
It's interesting, since for many Christian Democrats it might be not necessarily a contradiction to be on the one side pro-transatlanticist, but at the other side, at least when it comes to the nuclear warheads, to express that the nuclear warheads should move away from, the US nuclear warheads should move away from Germany. By the way, you mentioned the Bavarian CSU party. By the way, did you know that I was long-term member in the CSU party in Bavaria?
Yes, I have heard about it. That you have been even that you have been even in let's say the regional ranks of from the times of your youth, let's say, yes, in the youth organization as well, yes, in the beginning.
Yeah, let's not over-exaggerate it. I think I was leading a very small group back then, but well, I just wanted to mention...
Don't be so modest. We are just talking about it because our listeners have to know that you are an expert when it comes to, let's say, German party system. You know a lot of political parties. Some of them you know from within.
Yes, and back then in the 90s there was a very, and even after, a very populist politician within the CSU ranks. He was also in the leadership of the CSU party, very Bavarian traditionalist, Peter Gauweiler. I don't know if this name rings a bell at you.
For me, yes.
Peter Gauweiler was a total sovereignist in all these things. So Peter Gauweiler already back then shared opinions like Germany should gain more sovereignty. Peter Gauweiler was also a very strong opponent when in his time in the Bundestag, when Germany was sending support for the wars in Afghanistan and for the US wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And he was right, since Germany is the most important countries for the Americans to conduct this war in the Middle and in the Middle East. Germany is the biggest aircraft carrier the Americans possess. So that is what we have to say. And Peter Gauweiler was one of the most loudest voices opposing that. And that is quite interesting. So this is a guy who comes from the CSU party. By the way, a very close friend of, and you will also know him, of Oscar Lafontaine, who was short-term leader of the Social Democrats and left the Social Democrats while Schröder, Gerhard Schröder, also Social Democrat, was Chancellor. And you know why Lafontaine left the Social Democrats?
Well, officially because of the differences when it comes to social policy, yes?
Yes, but he said later on in interviews he left the social differences and all. He was minister of finance in Schröder's government, but he left precisely at the point when Schröder agreed to German participation also in the war in Yugoslavia. He said that this is not anymore social democratic and socialist policy. So quite interesting figures we had on the political landscape, even within the mainstream parties. If we look at Gauweiler, if we look at Lafontaine. To come back to Angela Merkel, Angela Merkel is the contrary of all these people, of course. She is not a populist at all. We spoke about it already. So these times for now, at least for now, seem to be over, where we had such exponents.
Yeah. So politics and party systems are becoming more and more boring, although as we have discussed already in several of our podcasts, perhaps we will have a possibility to observe and to witness huge changes, let's say global changes in politics, which will affect definitely several party systems as well. This goes for all those protest movements which might occur and so on. Anyway, the topic itself is quite interesting, and we would like to remind our listeners, I think you will agree with me, that we are one of the very, very few independent voices against the system among the media and among the small, of course, and alternative sources. That's why I guess that very soon we are going to discuss about the sources of information every citizen has and the independence of that sources and the possibilities to find an unbiased information in a contemporary world.
Yes, and we will have a special guest, but I will not leak right now who this will be, but in some days the listeners will know. We will have a really, really well-known guest who is practically and theoretically expert for independent media, especially when it comes to the Western world.
Yeah, that's why it should be a quite interesting discussion. We hope. And also, in some time, let's discuss the news which have just come. The news about the US withdrawal from the Common Sky Treaty. Yes, so that's quite interesting when it comes to the future of disarmaments in the world. Also in the German context, as Germany is, let's say, in harsh opposition, if we listen to Heiko Maas, to the position of Trump's administration when it comes to Open Sky Treaty.
Yes, I think we will also maybe speak in the next podcast about that. Also, an important topic. Maybe it's good for the end. Did you already see the emblem or the logo of the new American Star Force?
No, not yet.
You must check it, and I tell all the readers, check it. You know that Trump started the Star Force project, right?
Yes, it was like an answer to the Russian space army, yes?
Or Space Force it is.
Space Force, yes. Mm-hmm.
They share almost 100% the emblem of the Federation of Planets of Star Trek. And it's not a joke. It's not a joke. It's not a joke.
Well, if you consider that in the United States the copyright is, let's say, a thing which is almost holy, yes, we could expect some court cases soon. Yes, I guess against the designers from Star Trek versus U.S. federal government, which could be quite interesting.
Except they make William Shatner the first admiral of Space Force.
Yes.
Maybe they solve it like that.
The world is more and more funny in these sad times. Yes. However, we are really thankful to some of the Americans for the ideas, because really it makes us smile. Yes.
Yes, and if the project is successful, we have to overthink the whole base of our podcast, because it can't be then anymore just a geopolitical podcast. Then it must be a universe political podcast.
No. I guess that in some time we can also discuss and talk with our listeners as well about the idea of astropolitics.
Astropolitics.
Yes.
Has Poland already claims on the moon? Last question.
Not yet, but looking at our imperial tendencies, I think that it will come soon.
I hope so. Okay, thank you so much. We will
Thank
meet
you.
very soon again with our special guest who will have a lot to tell. Thank you so much and goodbye.
And thanks for our listeners.
Yes.
For listening to us, and for your opinions you give.
They are the best listeners of all podcasts.
Of course.
This program was presented to you by Manuel Ochsenreiter and Mateusz Piskorski, the hottest dissident who won't violate any time the global rules against racism, extremism, or any other bad isms.